10 tips I wish I knew before visiting Rome. And this is coming from a gal from Toronto, Canada, who is 26, has traveled to Rome 3 times, is generally looking for a bougie on a budget experience, and does not do hostels. Nothing wrong with hostels, so don't come for me. I just prefer not to travel that way. And if you find this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe for more videos. So tip 1, when you arrive to Rome Airport, specifically the Leonardo da Vinci Fiumicino Airport, probably pronounced that wrong, but after you clear customs, you will find that you'll need to take a bit of a drive to get to the city center from the airport, if that's where you're staying. And if there is 3 or more of you, consider taking a taxi service. But if it's just yourself or for 2 people, which was my case most of the time, make sure to keep your eyes out for the shuttle services at the exit of the airport. So this is where the cars will pick you up just right before you go outside. There are several of them, and it will be hard to miss. So for around 20 euros each person, they will drop you off at the steps of your hotel, and you will only be traveling with max 6 more guests. It's just a regular sized Sprinter van, and it's pretty fast, it's affordable, and it's safe. There's also a train option, but looking quickly at the prices, it would be more than the shuttle, and it wouldn't bring you directly to your destination. And now tip number 2. Although it is handy to bring euros in cash, in some scenarios like smaller street vendors, or if you feel like it's not safe to use your own credit card, most stores and restaurants do take credit cards, so you might as well rack up the points. And which brings me to tip number 3. When paying with your card and the machines ask you if you want to pay in the local currency or in your bank's home currency, always choose your bank, as that will most likely be the best currency conversion rate that you would get. Tip number 4. When sightseeing, make sure to try to buy your tickets online first. This is a good way to avoid huge lineups just to buy your tickets in person, and usually there will be shorter queues for people who have digital tickets, as well as there's oftentimes being options to purchase the skip the line tickets if there is a huge line. For instance, there were a few times that we found some museums along our walks and we wanted to visit just once we got there. And when we did get there, there were huge lineups just to buy the tickets, let alone line up to get in. So what we did is we got on the line, and then we realized, let's just try to go online to purchase the tickets to see if that's even faster. And then within 2 minutes, we had purchased the tickets online, skipped the entire queue, and by the time we left, the people originally in front of us in the line were just getting in. So you can see how much faster that would be. Similarly, make sure to read the fine print of the tours and entrance tickets you are purchasing before you purchase. For instance, we had purchased tickets for the Pantheon thinking we were purchasing from the original site itself, but we actually booked with a third party, and we found out only later that the actual tickets need to be picked up from a completely different location than the Pantheon. Which is okay if you were expecting that, but for us we were not, and because we bought timed entrance tickets, we were already too late. By the time we reached the Pantheon to be on time for there, if we were to go pick up the tickets and come back, we would have been late. So we kind of just disregarded those tickets and just looked at the Pantheon from the outside. But don't make that mistake. Make sure to look at the fine print. That's the lesson learned there. Tip 6. When looking for restaurants and places to eat, Google will be your best friend. Many restaurants and cafes in Rome, especially in the tourist areas, are tourist traps. If you see any restaurants with pictures of food on the big posters outside the restaurant or models of the food outside the restaurant, that is a red flag that the restaurants are catering to tourists and will be selling you overpriced food that local Italians probably wouldn't eat themselves. Although they may seem more accessible in terms of seeing what they would serve you before you order, looking up, for instance, best restaurants in Rome or best restaurants near me and seeing if they received 4 to 5 stars and many reviews would be much more useful. Tip number 7, which is one of my favorite tips, regards data. So if you don't want to roam from home and pay the ridiculous $14 a day, you can use an eSIM. And with an eSIM, you just need to download the eSIM app, which I use Iralo, and I'll put the logo there, and you just need to purchase it online or through the app rather, and follow the simple instructions, and then you have data on your phone and you buy it by gigs. So as you can see here, 1 gig is 5 USD, 3 gigs is 13 USD, and 5 gigs is 20 USD. I would say I use my phone quite a bit. I'm usually the main navigator when we go on trips, so 5 gigabytes seems to be more than enough when I go traveling, and that's only 20 USD versus paying the daily fee with your regular carrier. Tip 8. If you haven't been to the main airport, the one we just talked about, the Leonardo da Vinci Fiumicino Airport, they have amazing luxury shopping there. Everything from Gucci to Fendi to LV to Hermes, and of course your shopping is VAT free, which means you can take pretty much 16 to 18% off the listed price. And similarly, for tip 9, when shopping in Rome, especially when you're spending over $100 and are at, for instance, a suit shop or a luxury goods store, make sure to ask the store clerk if they offer tax refunds there. You basically are asking if they provide the service of preparing the papers for your tax refund. This is a service that you would need to pay for yourself, or rather the company, like Global Blue, would take a percentage of your refund back if you submitted that refund separately. So if the stores do provide that service, make sure to take that up so you don't get that chunk of money taken away from your tax refund from what you receive. And finally, tip 10, keep all of your tax return forms and receipts easily accessible when you leave the EU. And are flying back to your home countries, because that's when you're going to be submitting your tax forms, when you're finally leaving EU, not when you're traveling between the countries in the EU. So you will need to find the tax office at the airport to drop off and process your tax refunds. There are 3 companies that do this at the airport, and they're all located at the same area, so it's super easy once you find the area. Take a look at the paperwork the store printed out for you, and at the top it will say which tax refund company you would be submitting to. Submitting can look like talking to a rep in the window, placing your form in a submission box, or using a machine for submission. So make sure to ask around. There are usually people and reps walking around to see what is needed from you. And also a bonus tip is to place the items you are planning to claim back on your taxes back on near the top of your luggage, as the tax claim clerks may ask to see the items, and you don't want to have to rifle through all of your bags at the airport, especially if they're as tightly packed as mine are. And this is why it's super important to arrive to the airport early and to give yourself enough time for any lineups or mishaps. And another bonus tip is to request for your refunds back through a credit card instead of cash. And the reason that is that a few times I've tried to request for cash, and either you have to go to another stall or another window to ask for this money back usually, and sometimes they run out of cash, or that's another line you have to line up in. And if you don't have time or you don't want to deal with that, it's honestly just easier to get that money back on your credit card. You're still going to get the same amount back. It's not going to change. I have many more tips to share for hundreds of countries and cities. So if you found these tips helpful for your upcoming trip, please make